A big thank you to Paid Memberships Pro for sponsoring this video. Paid Memberships Pro is the best free membership plugin for WordPress. If you want to go pro, visit paidmembershipspro.com/Jamie for a special discount.
$1 million build like that for like a big publisher, it's you're putting a couple of $100,000 into your infrastructure, you're putting $300,000 into your design work, and you're putting $500,000 into the migration and build, something like that.
Good morning. A couple of weeks ago, I did one of my rapid website recreations where I recreated the TechCrunch website in just 30 minutes. What I didn't know is that the CEO of Human Made, the guys that actually built the TechCrunch website, watched my video, and he tweeted me to tell me it cost $1 million and took a year to make. A little bit awkward, but I thought it'd be fascinating to find out how you spend $1 million building a website. So very graciously, Tom, the CEO of Human Made, and Adrian, one of the chief architects of the TechCrunch project, agreed to come on my channel and explain how you spend $1 million building a website. And actually the conversation was wide-ranging and fascinating and covered such topics as why they don't use page builders in enterprise customers. What you're about to see is a highly edited version of that interview. If you want to see the director's cut, I put a link in the description for you. Hope you enjoy. You guys are building with Gutenberg, right? You're not using any other sort of page builders. You're invested in WordPress.
Yeah, we were super early into that. Like back when Gutenberg was a plugin pre-core, we were all in on it. You know, shipping Gutenberg beta as a plugin, you know, into production with our clients.
And why was
like
that,
ultimately
Tom?
the longer it's the longer you don't commit to it, the more difficult a transition it's going to be, right? Like, and part of why companies like TechCrunch or these other big publishers, big enterprises are working with us is because we're like helping them avoid those pitfalls, right? We're like plugged into the WordPress project. We know what's coming. We can help them make smart decisions early. And so let's commit to Gutenberg early on, and then we can roll with it as it evolves and avoid like a big expensive migration later.
And we're straying a bit from my main point, which was this, but what's your view on page builders in general in the market at the moment that you're seeing? Do you look at it?
I mean, you know, at the enterprise level, we really don't see them much, you know. Like sometimes we'll be migrating away from one of the other page builders to Gutenberg as part of a migration. Often that's just because like the company built something when they were smaller and now they've grown and they've kind of scaled past it. You don't really see the other page builders at the enterprise level.
That's really interesting. And why do you think that is? Do you think they're committed to core? What's the kind of enterprise reason for that?
Primarily, it's actually it's a bit of an ironic story around flexibility. Organizations and enterprises typically get caught up on flexibility. You know, you're trying to maintain a brand, you're trying to maintain a specific outcome, and what page builders do is more that they give you so much flexibility. You can create things on demand. You can have a very, you know, my interpretation of a certain result. Enterprises typically don't like that. There's not the element of control they need. So what you typically, if you were to use a page builder, and you know that there are some circumstances where it definitely exists within that space, you spend just as much time locking it down, perhaps creating controls that don't exist to allow it to be safe within that specific application.
And how do you guys deal with that with Gutenberg? Because obviously you can sort of argue the same point with Gutenberg, that people can create chaos with that as well. How do you approach that?
Exactly the same. We do actually spend a proportion of time making sure that we have control. And those are what Gutenberg and within the block editor, it does allow you to, you know, although you might base something on a core component, you've got a fair bit of control as you iterate through to say, well, this is the intention that I want. This control does X, you know, everything is quite tight. Full site editing, which is the actual example that was used, is freer. It does move more into that sort of free for all. And what our take on that, our focus on that, is to try to split the difference between those two worlds. There definitely is a new frontier and a new challenge to make sure that that is also suitable for enterprise. But one of the things that it brings along is, you know, it is performant. It is robust. You know, again, it's a fairly now mature part of core, which is really important. So all of those things has got going for it, you know, for the most part. But for us, we're kind of layering in, okay, that's great, but what does enterprise need? And enterprise is a little bit different.
Yeah, so you guys are invested in full site editing, or site editing as it's called now, yeah, as well.
That's right. Yeah.
You see that as the future of WordPress.
Yeah, I see that really that's the next major milestone, right? That like we got to help our clients navigate that transition and balance that like control versus flexibility, which is at the core of their needs. And like, no matter what they use, they're going to customize it a lot. And so you're trying to help them make the right decisions. You pick a piece of software, they're committed to it for quite a long time. There's a lot of customization and integration they've built around that. And so you want to make that right decision. Otherwise, you're committed to a page builder and you're with it for years and you've customized it a lot. And that's like an ever more painful transition when you eventually need to move on.
Yes, I see a lot of those people. So we can't really talk about design, can we, Tom? Because that was somebody else.
Oh, yeah, that was someone else. Yeah.
Let's put a cross through design. Who needs designers anyway? Let's get rid of them. 300 grand. We can just discount that. So it's interesting to talk about the sort of the infrastructure piece, this 200K piece here. Can you give us any sense of how much traffic they get? What sort of pressures are on that infrastructure? I was amazed actually when I started, because I did the 30-minute rebuild of TechCrunch. Sorry about that. But I was amazed how much.
I thought it was great.
I was amazed how much content there is on the site. It's extraordinary, isn't it? How much they put out every day. So can you give us a bit more detail around that piece, like traffic?
Yeah, ultimately, someone like TechCrunch, I don't know how much traffic they're doing, but they'll be doing a lot,
Yeah.
And so really, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for like the ability to scale to that amount of traffic and stay performant and up.
Cool. All right. So I guess in terms of your piece of work, this piece here was a huge bit of it, right? So how does that break down? If we're going to break that down into other cheeses, what does that involve? Like business processing, planning, and all that sort of stuff, I guess.
Does that say migration?
Yeah, so I'm writing terrible.
There's a fair bit of work just to create the kind of the translation between the old system and the new. Like, do you need to migrate the day before? Do they need to dual run across multiple publications while you're doing the migration as it is in place? There can be a lot of business complexity within that as well that has to be managed.
And sorry, there's one big question I forgot to ask you, which was how long did the project take, which I should have asked you at the start? From start to
finish. I think it's kind of like a year probably all in, know, and probably we're like, our part of that is probably like a 6 months of serious work kind of level.
And what roles within your team were working on the project, Tom? Like who are they? And I mean, I don't need names, but what kind of roles were?
I mean, we'd have a kind of team of engineers, kind of senior WordPress engineers, and a scrum master, a project manager, and then an account manager, that's working with the client.
So you guys use Scrum and agile stuff in Human Made, do you? Waterfall is when you spend a long time producing a spec. Then it gives the spec to the dev team. They develop it. By the time they've developed it, the project has changed, right? That's classic sort of waterfall methodology. Whereas Scrum is like you're constantly iterating with the end user as well, right? They're important in the process.
Yeah, that's right. So in this specific case, in TechCrunch, for example, because a lot of it was invention, a lot of it was a creative exercise.
Yeah,
it really lends itself well to that, because we're able to show some of these results earlier than we would do otherwise. We're able to experiment and develop things and showcase them, and then have immediate feedback on how that could be improved on overall through future iterative cycles and so on.
And I'm really interested in the editorial workflow that they have internally, because I think they're a remote team.
Yeah.
Were there any kind of special editorial stuff? Because they were using WordPress as the CMS, right? Still.
Yep.
So was there any kind of interesting editorial workflow stuff going on that you guys had to develop?
Always. I think in their specific case, it was time to publish was really important for them. The
What does that mean?
workflow.
What does that mean, Adrian? Sorry.
So because they're reacting to real-time events,
Okay.
and they're dealing with embargoes and relatively short hop. Oh, I've just found out something. I need to be first to publish within the hour, for example.
Okay. Yeah.
They needed something that was, as efficient and as kind of clutter-free and as specific to get the end result that they wanted as possible. So out of the box, WordPress offers a lot from a CMS perspective, but sometimes it can be maybe a little bit obfuscated, or actually, although it's one of the better user experiences out there, it might not suit the newsroom, if you like, as much as it can, and that can come down to lower level nuances, like the management of images, for example, can be quite a recurrent one. And within their example, and quite often, we need to do more there to make sure that they're able to maybe crop in line and being able to take a lot of the workflow that would exist outside that is quite time consuming if you're using another set of tools to do it.
Were they using sort of the base WordPress post editor, or was there any special stuff going on there?
Because we'd moved them to a very early version of Gutenberg, right?
Well, that must be really entertaining, because Gutenberg was changing a lot back then as well.
Absolutely. There was kind of 3 unofficial versions, I think, that were quite fundamentally different from each other.
What was the budget? Did you go over the budget, and was it on time? There you go. That's 3 good questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ultimately the thing TechCrunch cared about were achieving their goals, and so time and budget probably had a little bit more flexibility than even we would usually see with other clients.
That's a no, Tom, isn't it?
And so I would say, from my memory, I think what happened is that their ambitions grew. As we kind of got into the project, their ambitions grew, and this turned into kind of a larger, more ambitious relaunch for them. And so I think we ended up, there was like a pretty comprehensive phase 2 that was kind of discovered along the way. And some of that was design led, like definitely some of this kind of river innovation was kind of design led too, which was quite interesting. We got to work quite closely with that team to figure out like what is possible on the cutting edge of user experience and like decoupled tech at that time.
A big thank you to Tom and to Adrian for their time. If you want to see the full video, I do recommend it, because we go into what is semi-headless and React and all sorts of complex technical stuff, which I edited out of this one, but there is a link in the description below if you want to check that out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, if you can hit the like button, it would be amazing, because it makes a huge difference to how many people actually get to see this video. And also, every time you do hit that like button, our cats get a little treat. If you want to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button and you'll be notified every time I release a new one. Keep well, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.